In the last episode, Zhang Yi wins the festival, obtaining the rank of commander, and once in the house he talks with Isabella about the Demon Queen's personality. Zhang Yi asked her if she changed her personality in other opportunities, but Isabella says no, since this started happening after Lillian stole her powers. Zhang Yi asked her why did she stole her powers, since that could lead them to a way for her to get her Demon Queen's limit power back completely. Isabella didn't know exactly what that was, but she remembered some features so Zhang Yi could draw it. But when drawing it he realized that it looked like a penis, so he asked her to be more specific so he could draw it later. Then they both go to visit the forge class, which had become popular thanks to Zhang Yi. Then Zhang Yi shows Martin the drawing he made with Isabella and asked if he have seen that dagger since he has visited numerous corners of the plains. Martin says that maybe he had seen one but he didn't remember well, and he asks Zhang Yi if that was one of his new creations. He says no, since he found that design in the demon tribe and he wanted to study it so he could contribute with humanity's progress. But Isabella interrupts him saying that this dagger killed the Demon Queen. When Martin hears that, he gets surprised and he grabs a book where he made some notes 5 years ago from a mural painted within some ancient temple. Martin explains that in that book there are different weapons and objects that the gods once used, and some tales from when they lived in the plains. Zhang Yi decides to look for a related image, but when taking a look at the book he gets surprised because some drawings looked like airships, cars and other things from his world. After a lot of searching they finally finds an image just like their drawing, and Isabella asks Martin where that temple he mentioned before is. Martin says that it's located within a forest keeper in the mountains in the Ili mountain range. Martin says that 5 years ago they received a help call coming from that place, since some lizard was destroying the city, and in order to protect his brothers, Ili decided to fight against the lizard, which started to attack him, but luckily Mike arrived and defeated the lizard. After that Ili asked Mike to be his master and he accepted since he knew that Ili had potential. Then after the helping mission was fulfilled, the locals showed the temple remains to Martin. One of the locals explained that those remains had been there for thousands of years, so they thought that the gods had built it. When Martin got close to those remains he realized that there were some descriptions in ancient language. Martin managed to copy some of the information since he knew a bit about that language. When Zhang Yi hears that, he thought if maybe other humans from his world had been there before. The next day Zhang Yi is called by Sophices, since officially, Sophices was going to rank him up, giving him a medal which would allow him to get in and out the kingdom as he pleased. Zhang Yi says goodbye to Sophices since he along with his friends will go to the ancient temple remains to start an investigation. Martin asked him to take the lunar stone with him, but Zhang Yi refuses because that stone was very important for the kingdom, although he really wanted to take it. After that, Zhang Yi builds a car and he started his journey. And in that moment a knight arrives saying that the regent had returned to the kingdom after annihilating the whole East tribe. He also says that he is in a meeting with the king and the king ordered Sophices to go to the palace. Once Sophices is arriving the palace he found himself with the regent who was releasing his power while walking. Sophices asked him why did his father commit suicide after talking with him. Angus says that he just told him the truth about the world and he was planning to tell him as well, but it was very soon for him to comprehend. After feeling some of Angus' powers, Sophices starts to bleed a bit. After that he swears that he would kill Angus with his own hands to avenge his father. On the other hand, Zhang Yi built a helicopter in which they arrived the mountain range faster, but they were all dizzy because of the altitude. Ili reunites with some of his child friends who were surprised by the helicopter Zhang Yi built, since it was a divine object for them. Then they took them to the village, and they were surprised to see that people living there were very strong compared to the people in the capital. Then by afternoon, this guy tells Zhang Yi that his helicopter looked a lot like the drawing inside the ancient temple. Zhang Yi explains that this was the main reason why they were there, to investigate about those drawings, and that guy said that he would tell everything about that in the morning since they must be tired for the long trip. Everybody says goodbye and they go to sleep, and when Zhang Yi sees that Isabella is separating the blankets, he says that he brought his to sleep on the floor. Isabella says that for that one night he could sleep on the bed since he wasn't totally recovered from his wounds. Zhang Yi was pretty excited since he thought he had a chance with Isabella, but sadly he quickly realized that Isabella decided to sleep on the floor. The next day they go to see the remains, and one of the guys told them that his ancestors said that that's where the gods used to live, and currently they used it for New Year's celebrations. After a long searching process, they finally found the dagger they'd drawn, and their rings started to shine as well as some writings in the mural. After that, a secret door opens where the mural was, surprisingly because he never heard about that mural having a secret door before. Before going in, Zhang Yi creates some sensorial spiders with cameras and he sent them to investigate if they could find something dangerous inside, since they don't really know what to expect inside. After a little while he confirms that nothing dangerous is inside, so they decide to go in, and suddenly all the torches surrounding them lighten up themselves. On his way Zhang Yi asks himself if their rings maybe broke the seal of that mural, and also if he could find some clues about how and why he arrived to that world. Then, Moto and Li starts to feel a power increasing. Isabella says that they are feeling it because there is a big amount of limit power inside. In that moment, Zhang Yi receives a signal coming from his spiders saying that they found something. He sees that it was about a mural in which some tall guy was carrying the dagger they draw. They continue walking and they found the mural. It was surprising because it was huge, but it was written in ancient language so they would have to decipher it just by the drawings. They noticed that the mural had several tribes and above them there were the gods, carrying the dagger they draw. Zhang Yi, after analyzing it, says that maybe the mural was made to inform that the gods were the ones who created all the tribes, but they would leave that just as a theory. Then when taking a look at what the spiders were watching, he realizes that there is more to it, so they decide to go forward. The team goes 10 floors down but they find nothing. There were not murals anymore, but Zhang Yi receives a signal from one of his spiders. They had detected a life form up ahead. In that moment, some kind of slime falls into Zhang Yi's hand, burning him, realizing that the whole ceiling was full of that slime, making it dangerous. The slimes start to fall one by one but the team manages to avoid them. Li throws a powerful attack to destroy them but more slime appear and they were more powerful so they decided to get on more floor down, and Zhang Yi seals the door so they could not get through. In that moment he receives a signal. One of his spiders were destroyed. Those other rank D crimson spiders were the guilty ones. But behind those spiders a dragon appears, and start to destroy the spiders. Isabella says that it is not a dragon since it doesn't emit the same energy as a real dragon does. And in that moment this dragon start talking to them saying that they shouldn't be in there. Zhang Yi says that they were there looking for an object. But the dragon didn't like humans so he starts attacking them. Zhang Yi defends from the attack, forging a powerful wall, and Isabella together with Li start attacking the dragon, but the dragon sends them flying with his huge strength. Isabella decides to use her Demon Queen limit power using an ability called Magic Sword Aura. The dragon manages to dodge it by a hair. Then scared about that, he starts destroying the place to kill them with it. The floor crumbles and Zhang Yi forges an armor, helping Isabella. But when he was about to help Moto, one big rock gets in front of him but just in time he manages to create a tome to save himself. They both are amazed because they descended so many floors and Zhang Yi sees the reports collected by his spiders. With all that information they generated a map and the place was huge and every room had different secret chambers and each one of them had different tasks. Isabella tells Zhang Yi that the magic aura was stronger than before and that's because they are getting closer to the source emitting it. They both decide to go to that source. On the other hand, the other managed to save themselves and they decided to keep going forward into the tunnels where they were. Once they were walking through they faced some rank sea thieves bats which start attacking them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he was also fighting monsters. In that moment the Thorn Queen appears and she starts communicating with the monsters so they could stop fighting and rather to settle things by talking. Zhang Yi is surprised to see the Thorn Queen there and Isabella says that she brought her there since she promised her that she would look for her. Zhang Yi shows the monsters the dagger drawing. But they didn't want to cooperate since they didn't want to quit the magic aura the dagger emits, since they survived because of it. Isabella was furious so she uses more of her Demon Queen limit power. But this time it was stable since she absorbed the energy surrounding her. That scared the monsters making them get away and the Thorn Queen becomes a bracelet so she could help them later. As Isabella smelled horrible because a lot of the monsters' blood fell into her. Zhang Yi offered her a change of clothes, but she couldn't find a place where to change. On the other hand, the other two managed to beat the bats and decided to go to the end of that tunnel, where they got surprised to find a huge door. Li decided to open it but he couldn't. He didn't want to quit trying since Mike taught him that he must overcome every obstacle. Li uses his limit power to open the door, but it was so difficult. Eventually he managed to do it by using a 200% of his power. Then they both decide to get through. Li didn't realize that when he entered he activated a thing and almost everything surrounding them started to shine, surprising them because they had found another mural not far from them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he found a hidden room where a water fountain was, and then he gets surprised to see that everything there was big. Isabella found a bathtub so she started taking a bath and Zhang Yi manages to see her thanks to an opening in the door. But like a total gentleman he decides to go because that was wrong. Once he was alone he started thinking about maybe an ancient tribe lived there. That tribe was more powerful than the humans and the demon tribe together, so that's why he asked to himself if those were the ones who created the world. But he also was asking to himself why did they disappeared suddenly. In that moment he gets his ring out thinking about maybe that thing was created by that ancient tribe. And lastly he also asked to himself if the members of that tribe could travel to his world since he was teleported to his current world. Suddenly a hooded person passes by him so he decided to follow in creating a wall so he couldn't escape. The person reveals her identity, surprising Zhang Yi because it was Penny. Zhang Yi asked her if the regent sent her to keep an eye on him and she answered yes. Zhang Yi asks her how much did she saw, and with a smile she says that she saw everything and she gets behind him asking him to cooperate with her. otherwise she would kill him. Penny says that she already knows that Isabella is the demon queen, surprising Zhang Yi because he found himself in the worst spot possible. Zhang Yi asks what do she want from him, and Penny, lowering her rapier, asks him to help her assassinate the regent, surprising Zhang Yi because he couldn't understand since she was working for him. Zhang Yi asks her why she wants to kill him, but Penny angrily says that it wasn't his business, and if he doesn't help her she would reveal to the whole kingdom who Isabella really was. Penny says that the regent is waiting for her for some information, and when that happens she could act and take the opportunity to kill him with his help. So she would contact them later for help, and she explains that the regent is waiting for a signal to act, and when that happens, the planes will explode in a war. After saying all that, she goes, leaving Zhang Yi doubting about what signal was the regent waiting to act. On the other hand, Moto was escaping from a golem which ends up catching him anyway. But in that moment Ali arrives, helping him by making the golem collapse. Then more golems appear in front of them, and when Ali realizes that they were powerful, he uses his most powerful ability, and so he starts a fight with them. Going back to Zhang Yi, he thought that for now he could trust Penny since she gave him a lot of information. But then the dragon appeared and grabbed him with its tail. The dragon thought that Zhang Yi wanted his gem and it was going to eat him. But Zhang Yi didn't know about anything about any gem. In that moment Isabella arrives, attacking the monster and saving Zhang Yi from dying. The dragon was very angry and starts fighting with Isabella for real. When Zhang Yi realizes that she couldn't fight half naked, he creates an armor for her, and he explains that this armor has many enhancements so the user could not be defeated so easily. Isabella says that she didn't need that thing, but she was happy on her inside since she always see him working on new interesting projects. So the fight against the dragon begins, but Isabella was in disadvantage since the armor increased her power, making it difficult to control. Then the dragon catches Isabella. Zhang Yi also starts to fight using a magic armor and injuring the dragon. Zhang Yi frees one of his spiders to follow it to its hideout, where it uses the dagger's powers to recover itself and obtains more power, making it evolve. Then they arrive and realizes that the dragon is in fact a lizard that absorbed the dagger's aura, making it evolve. And that was the reason why the lizard didn't want them to find the dagger. When they see the dagger they realize that it was identical to the one they draw, and that was the weapon Lillian used to steal Isabella's power. After that the fight against the lizard starts again, which was more powerful this time. Even Isabella's sword couldn't damage it. Zhang Yi manages to catch him with some special pincers, and Isabella notices that she has an opportunity and uses a magic ability with her sword, destroying the magic barrier the lizard created to defend itself. Zhang Yi takes this advantage to take the dagger, and as he already knew that the dagger could steal powers, he thinks that it is the gem inside the dagger, the one with the powers. Zhang Yi also realizes that the gem looks the same as the gem in their rings. The lizard begs them not to take the gems, but in that moment they decide to try the dagger on the lizard, taking its powers and getting it back to its normal form. That confirmed that the dagger could indeed steal powers. Zhang Yi wanted to get those powers inside Isabella, but she didn't want it because that power wasn't hers, embarrassing her. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so the channel can keep growing and so you can get the next chapter. If you like these kinds of manhwas recaps, you can watch other manhwas that I will be leaving down in the description so you can watch after this one. Then the ceiling breaks and some golems fall, which were damaged by Ali, and like that the investigation group reunites. Zhang Yi asked why he used that ability since it hurts him, and Ali tells that they found some golems very powerful before. In that battle Ali was using his most powerful abilities, but the golems always counter them. But Ali was not going to give up, so he used his most powerful attack, going down several floors. On the other hand, the golems stand up again, surprising everyone because despite Ali used his most powerful attack, the golems could keep fighting. So now they decide to escape since the only thing the golems wanted was the gem. And when they see the dagger, they speed up to block the exit, destroying it. The other golems started to attack them on their backs, but they managed to avoid them, and then they split so that each one fights with one. Everybody start fighting the golems, throwing them powerful attacks, but didn't work because the golems managed to counter them all. Everybody gathered, and Zhang Yi says that he noticed that those golems weren't monsters but machines created by humans. Isabella says that she also noticed it, but there was something weird about them since she could feel an aura of life in them, but they didn't seem to be alive, surprising Zhang Yi with that. The golems prepared again to attack. But after thinking a lot, Zhang Yi came up with a plan to escape and asked the others to buy him some time. Zhang Yi forges some mice and then a dragon ball-like radar with which sent the mice to the golems. Isabella throws an attack to the golems to immobilize them, and the mice start to scratch them with their tails, marking them all. After that, Zhang Yi uses his brush to separate the golems since his plan was to use the golems as materials to forge so he could separate them and defeat them. Zhang Yi goes and grabs some stones that were floating in the air after separating the golems, and he realized that those stones were giving power to the golems. Zhang Yi was going to grab another stone, but the lizard from before appears, taking the stone from him to eat it in the escape. They decided to let him go because they already got what they needed, and in that moment Li gets in bad shape for having used his limit power without resting. Zhang Yi told him not to worry since he was going to use those stones to heal him. And so he puts the stone into the dagger, healing up Li. Zhang Yi got happy because it was really easy to use it, and he compares it with the lunar stone, but that stone was different since it represented life. So when he gets back to the kingdom, he will ask Basil for a good explanation about the origin of that powerful stone. Then he asked himself if he would be able to create life if he combined those powerful stones with his brush. On the other hand, Isabella sees Zhang Yi, and she was more and more convinced that indeed Zhang Yi would be the one who saved her tribe, since he is always there when she needs him. Zhang Yi was uneasy just by thinking he could create life, but he decides to leave that for later and calls Isabella so they could get back to the village. In that moment we see that Isabella is starting to fall in love with Zhang Yi. The next day Zhang Yi creates a school in the village. He did that because he promised Li that if he came with him he would build a school and an orphanage in the village, making everyone happy because now they could live a better life. As a gratitude gesture, Li's brothers give him a bouquet of roses made of paper, and this little girl tell him to give it to Isabella. Zhang Yi took notice and gave the flowers to her, but she was not like other girls and says that they are useless, but she accepts them. Zhang Yi was sad hearing those words, and when Isabella noticed it she didn't know why he was like that. By night Zhang Yi realizes that Isabella wasn't there, so he decided to look for her, and he found her looking at the stars. Isabella says that when she takes her throne back she will help him go back to his world. Zhang Yi says that he misses some things about his world, and Isabella asked him if he will miss the people from this other world when he gets back home. Zhang Yi says that he will miss his friends, but when he was about to say that he will miss her the most, Li arrives, ruining that romantic moment. Zhang Yi angry starts yelling at him for ruining that moment, and just like that Zhang Yi's first confession falls into pieces. On the other hand, inside the ancient temple those guys were killing monsters, and one of them sees the lizard, killing it and obtaining the stone. They say that they were there because of Penny's report, and the others say to their master that they already searched everywhere but they didn't find what they were looking for. One of them said that Penny could have stole it, but the master says that she wouldn't dare, and they decide to go since his ruler was waiting for them and for good news. Then we found ourselves in the kingdom where the regent's family were thinking about taking revenge for the humiliation back in the festival, but they are interrupted by a bunch of people that were welcoming them, making the regent's family get into a good mood. But it happens that they weren't there for them but for Zhang Yi's team because they were arriving from their investigation in the ancient temple. The regent's family members were angry, and Moto notices that they were on their way, so he gets out some robotic arms from the truck and send them flying so they could not bother them. The Union Commerce Kingdom made a bronze statue of Zhang Yi in gratitude, since thanks to his help they had new ways to earn money. One of them take them to a meeting where they were going to talk about how to improve the ways to earn more benefits. So Isabella goes to not interrupt them. She starts thinking about how Zhang Yi changed a lot. Before he was a person who could just talk but do anything. She asked herself if maybe Zhang Yi was getting better just because he was sad. On the other hand, back in the meeting everybody start talking about how well their business are, but one of them wasn't as good as the others, since his products wasn't selling well, so Zhang Yi gives him a new idea to advertise his products, surprising everyone since they didn't know about that technique. After a long conversation Zhang Yi shows his new project, which will be called electric power, which if it becomes successful, it may extend to other tribes. But there was a problem, there were not enough forgers to fulfill that demand. Zhang Yi shows his new invention, a machine that when connected to an electric source it starts to forge automatically without needing a forger. Some of them are happy about that since it solves the production issue, but others were worried because that invention may leave them unemployed. One of them asks Zhang Yi how that machine could forge since it doesn't have thoughts, and Zhang Yi says that it does it by using magic glyphs. In conclusion, they draw a magic glyph of some object, and with an alignment stone inside the machine they made it forge on its own. But the machine required an electric alignment stone, but the others didn't see that sustainable since that stone's worth more than the objects the forge can make. That when Zhang Yi presents his new invention, an electric generator, that invention can replace the alignment stones. The electric stones works for the operation of many things that they are doing, but these are limited, so they have to become independent of them if they wanted to grow as a society. And in order to achieve that, Zhang Yi and his friends looked for many ways to create electricity. After a lot of searching they managed to create a power generation station where they could keep energy in a box easy to transport. With that they could use the forging machine along with other inventions, impressing everyone, since with all that the production would increase in each of their independent jobs without spending a lot of money in electric alignment stones. Zhang Yi says that he has a bigger plan, which is to provide electricity to all homes inside the kingdom to finally destroy the regent's family tyranny, since they are the ones raising the prices of alignment stones. Zhang Yi wants to provide energy to all houses in the kingdom so they can enjoy the benefits of having electricity, so that's why he was looking for everyone's help. but everyone stood still, and that was because Basil took Zhang Yi to his temporal line where only both of them could talk. Once they were talking, Zhang Yi told him everything that happened in the ancient temple. When Basil knew that he had the red stone and the dagger, he asked him to show them to him. When showing the objects, he says to Basil that maybe he could create life if he uses the stone well. Basil, very upset, told him not to do that since it was forbidden, and he starts pressuring him and asking him if he didn't value life, since he wanted to create new lives. Zhang Yi, very scared, was thinking about why Basil was behaving like that. Plus, he wasn't planning on creating life. He was just curious. Basil calms down after reading his mind and realizing that indeed he was only curious, and apologizes because he used a lot of strength to get out his true intentions. Before he goes, Zhang Yi asked why he got angry just like that and why it is forbidden to create life. Since Zhang Yi comes from another world, he planned to tell him everything only to him. So using his magic, he takes him to an illusion where he shows the origins of that red stone, which is capable of create life. In that illusion, he can see the ancient temple where they recently made an investigation. That illusion was part of Basil's memories, and in that moment a bunch of human beings appear, and surrounding them there was the gods tribe that Zhang Yi saw on the ancient temple's murals, and those human beings were thanking the gods for teaching them magic. Zhang Yi asked why were they thanking them, because he heard that magic was taught by a dragon. Basil says that it was a lie, that the basis of knowledge of human beings was built by lies. In that moment a young Basil appears, surprising Zhang Yi. But Basil says that in that moment he was God's slave. The gods were scolding him for bringing weak sacrifices, but humans were begging them to accept any kind of job. With a mocking tone, the gods accepted, and they took out their daggers with which they aimed towards the human beings, creating a big circle on top of them, and it starts to absorb all those human beings, even the children who were screaming out of pain. Zhang Yi wanted to help them, but Basil says that even when it looked so real, that was just a part of his memories. After that sphere absorbed every person, the red stone is created, scaring Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi asks if the stone on his ring was also created by killing innocent people. Basil affirms that, but Zhang Yi's stone was special because it has high purity, and the higher purity the red stone is, the more people died in order to create it, scaring Zhang Yi even more. When the gods realized that they only managed to create a low purity red stone, they gave it to Basil, which he asked why would they give him something so valuable. The gods start laughing, saying that they have no plan in using that low purity red stone since it is trash for them, and they are planning of making another one with higher purity by killing more humans in the future. Zhang Yi realizes that gods saw them as livestock, and he asked Basil if humans were really created by those gods, and Basil says yes. And he also says that those gods are the same lineage as Isabella. Before we continue with the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so the channel can keep growing and so you can get the next chapter. If you like these kinds of manhwas recaps, you can watch other manhwas that I will be leaving down in the description so you can watch after this one. Those gods were so powerful that they didn't have any enemies who could face them, but they faced a problem with no solution regarding his limited resources. The red stone was the source of life in the Zhou plains, and natural resources were running out as well since the gods' tribe were expanding. But the God King realized that he could create life with that stone, so he was planning to create more lives so in the future he could create more red stones. The first lives created were the dwarves, human beings and beasts which helped the gods with their conquers. After some time the first red stone depleted, so the gods started recycling lives to create new red stones. In the beginning, human beings were the weakest of them all, but with time they evolved, getting knowledge and eventually becoming the strongest of all the planes. The gods liked that because they became their most valuable resource to produce red stones. That's the truth about this world, a world where the gods experiment with human beings. Basil says that he was the first human being they created, so he became a salve, doing the dirty job for them. Zhang Yi asked him why the gods passed that knowledge to them if they would kill them at the end. Basil says that they did it so the humans could survive and the purity of their bodies would increase with time. Basil, together with the royal family lineage, were the first ones to be created, so they were known as the most loyal slaves. But Basil was immortal and the lineage family weren't. Since the royal family knew how to use the power of life, the gods summoned a dragon that was supposed to protect the royal family. Now that Zhang Yi knows all that, he can relate with the death of Guro, the East tribe killing by the regent, and so much more. This lead him to the conclusion that the ritual of creating red stones continues and Basil is still helping those gods. Basil says that one part of that is true, but there are so many things that he couldn't tell him, so he asked him to keep watching his memories. The God King suggests the other gods to hibernate since the red stones were about to run out. Before the God King also hibernate, gives Basil instructions to take care of his livestock and to provide red stones while they rested until someday they wake up. And as reward the God King made a red stone, and once inside Basil, it made him immortal. Lastly, the God King says that if one day the humans start to deviate from their way, he should show them the wrath of the gods. After all that, Basil closes the illusion and Zhang Yi was very scared and asked him if he helped all the regents with the mission of providing human beings to sacrifice. Basil says no because the royal family has made their job pretty well. So well that they've never needed his help. Now he tells him about how the regents came to an agreement with Lillian and not with Isabella. And that's because Lillian offered the demons lives for the ritual of Redstone's creation during the next 5 years. That made Angus not such an authoritarian asshole but someone whose priority was always to protect his tribe at any cost. So Zhang Yi asked him if he created the academy to make high-quality lives for the gods. In that moment Isabella arrives and asked why he got out from the meeting and Zhang Yi says that he was talking to Basil but he wasn't there, making him look like a fool. When he was going, Zhang Yi wasn't planning on telling everything to Isabella. On the other hand, inside the royal palace, the king had received a letter from the dwarves asking for reinforcements since the dwarves and the demons were about to start a war. Sophists say that he will send reinforcements since human beings and dwarves have always been good to each other. But before making a decision he asked Angus and he says that it is not recommended to send reinforcements because humans and demons are at peace since Lillian fulfilled her part of the deal when they signed the peace treaty. It means that Lillian is indeed sending demon life forms for the Redstone's creation. The other important lords from the kingdom agreed with the regent since they wouldn't get anything by getting involved in that war. The only thing they would get would be troubles with the demon tribe. The king, noticing that everyone agreed, he decided not to send reinforcements to the dwarves' tribe. Later in the Forge class, Martin was angry and wanted to help the dwarves. Sophists tell him not to do that, otherwise he would be disobeying the king's orders. But Martin wanted to go even if he died because the dwarves always helped him with his investigations. Zhang Yi decides to go with Martin and Isabella as well, and before anyone told her anything, she already had all set up to go. Zhang Yi tells her to stop being so proactive since they would discover her identity. Isabella says that she wanted to see what Lillian had planned, since the demon tribe never had issues with the dwarves' tribe. Martin tells Zhang Yi that he doesn't need them to go with him since he didn't want them to get into trouble. But Zhang Yi says that he is going to protect him because their friendship is not less thing than he had with the dwarves. Martin was so happy and accepts Zhang Yi's company. But Sophists intervene saying that they should not disobey the king's orders, that if they do, he would punish them himself. Later that day Zhang Yi wanted to get out from the kingdom but he came across with some white dragon knights at the exit so he asked them how could they get out. Isabella tells him that Sophists treats him like a brother because he thinks that Zhang Yi is his lost brother, so he wouldn't let him go to dangerous places. While they were passing by they saw Renz, who was being beaten by the regent's family which were taking revenge because Renz always used to intimidate them with his powers. Busey was about to cut off one of his hands but Zhang Yi intervenes, protecting him. Busey asked why he did that if he tried to kill him before. Zhang Yi says that he can't stand seeing how they abuse the weak and they decide to go because Aces was about to arrive. Zhang Yi asks Renz if he is okay but Renz told him not to bother him, that just like the others he just wanted to humiliate him. Zhang Yi wasn't expecting a thank you. In that moment Aces arrives and scolds him for letting Zhang Yi help him and that he should thank Zhang Yi for not killing him since he was the one who proposed the battle to death. A sad Renz thanks Zhang Yi for not killing him in the festival and then he just ran since he had anything else to say. On the other hand, Aces apologizes with Zhang Yi for always underestimate him and for what he did for Renz. But now he would have to overcome his obstacles by himself, changing subjects. Aces was very angry with Zhang Yi because he used to sell dolls about her, but she let it go since she realized that he was a good kid. By night, this group gathered to the go and helps the dwarves' tribe. They also invited Nanai because his was strong. Sophists arrived but he wasn't going to arrest them. On the contrary, he brought reinforcements to help the dwarves. Zhang Yi asked him why he was helping them instead of arresting them. Sophists said that before he was worried about the situation so he went to speak to the king alone. The king allowed to secretly send help to the dwarves' tribe so he arranged some things with other masters to protect the king while he was away. On the other hand, Dorona gives Isabella a suppression seal so when she loses control of her limit powers, the seal could help her control it. After that, everyone that was going to the dwarves' tribe arrives and after some talking, Zhang Yi forges a helicopter to go to their destiny. Before they go, Zhang Yi gives Aces a letter so she delivers it to someone and says that he will find a way to cure Renz. When they were leaving, Dorona notices that Penny was behind the helicopter following Zhang Yi and his group. Inside the helicopter they introduce the head of servants, Selena, who is also going with them. Sophists say that she is also going because her magic is useful since she can change the size of things, making their investigation easier. Zhang Yi prepares everything, loading a map into the helicopter so it can be autopiloted and he could rest. On the other hand, near the dwarves' kingdom, Prince Marvin along with other dwarves were escaping from the demons, and they were about to catch them so Marvin was going to buy his friends some time so they could escape. The others were very sad, leaving him to go and find reinforcement and help him. On the other hand, the others were talking in the helicopter about how to face the demons, but they were attacked by some flying stingrays. The demons were about to attack them once more, but Zhang Yi attacks them with the heli's weapons, which were damaging the stingrays, even protected by magic. The demons decided to go, surprising everyone. That helicopter was really powerful and Zhang Yi was happy about that. But sophists tell everyone to prepare themselves since a huge wave of demons were approaching. They took out the helicopter's weapons so they couldn't use them anymore. The damage was done by the King Stingray, who was also using a pillar of the demon army called Papate. Sophists gets out from the helicopter to talk to Papate. He asked him not to attack them since the demon tribe and humans are allies, and they had a peace treaty. Papate says that he would not attack them, but Lillian had ordered them to defeat the dwarves tribe in 3 days so the human tribe could trade with the demons. Papate told his men to escort them back to their kingdom, but Sophists says that it won't happen since they were ordered to go to the dwarves tribe to talk about commerce. When Papate realizes that Sophists was going to be in the middle of his mission, he planned to start a battle with him. Sophists accept since they had no other option. So a fight between these two starts. A fight where the helicopter were being damaged, so Zhang Yi decides to retire. Back in the fight, Sophists were making real damage to Papate, who was very impressed about Sophists' powers. On the other hand, the other demons start to attack the helicopter, leaving it in a very critical condition. So Zhang Yi decides to land to avoid an accident. Sophists was worried about Zhang Yi, so he decides to finish off Papate quickly with a powerful attack to go and help them. Papate was trying hold the attack, but it didn't work, since it landed on his body, receiving a lot of damage. After that, Sophists decides to go and help Zhang Yi, who in a blink of an eye was beating almost every demon on his way. Sophists orders him to step aside, but Papate destroys their helicopter. Sophists was very angry and started attacking him. He was worried about his friends, but they managed to save themselves thanks to their abilities. Zhang Yi on the other hand only had one low-quality alignment stone, so he couldn't do anything, and he had a stingray above him. The stingray gets one of its tentacles out, worrying Zhang Yi, who thinks that he is about to get killed. But he was saved. Above that stingray there was Isabella, who had no other option but to kill it. In that moment the stingrays gets out of control since they had no demon to control them. Martin wanted to help them, but they were assaulted from behind by other demons, making it difficult to get to them. But Penny appears, saving them by killing the demons that surrounded them. She told them to land because it was going to be very difficult to fight against those demons in the air. So with no other choice, they decide to land. On the other hand, Zhang Yi and Isabella manages to save themselves. Isabella noticed that something wrong was happening. Zhang Yi sees a monster crushed, and he asked himself if maybe it was crushed by the dwarves' kingdom, since Martin told him that the dwarves' kingdom was a moving city that were moving to the southwest because of the season. While they were walking, someone attacked them out of nothing. These were little demons which were shooting missiles and then hide in the sand to reload their weapons. Zhang Yi discovers their pattern and plans to use his low-quality stone to attack them, so he asked Isabella to distract them. Meanwhile, the demons realizes that Zhang Yi is the weakest, so they decide to attack him first. But Zhang Yi finishes his plan. He created some trampoline with which they managed to put them all together, and Isabella defeats them. Zhang Yi was happy about that, but Isabella told him not to be since some pillar demons could arrive. She tells him that there are 12 pillars which are more powerful than Ren's, and given his current condition it would be very difficult to kill just one. While they were talking, the ground starts trembling and Billion, the third rank of the pillars, appears. Isabella gets hurt when trying to escape Balian. Since Balian was a fool demon, he was wondering why he was there, and when seeing below his feet, his dead friends were there, so he blames Zhang Yi and Isabella for that. Zhang Yi was angry and told him that he was the one who killed his own friends, so Balian got sad and started to cry. Zhang Yi wanted to take advantage of that moment to escape, but Balian was already mad and wanted to kill them, since if it wasn't for them, Balian would have never killed his friends. In that moment Balian starts to attack them. Isabella receives the attack, and since she had an injured arm, she decided to use her Demon Queen aura, but it neutralizes out of nothing. Balian, taking advantage of her being distracted, Balian punches her, sending her flying. But Zhang Yi saves her using his brush and starts taunting Balian to see if he fights him. But he ignores him since he was weak, so he goes straight for Isabella, but Zhang Yi forges a sand ramp so she could go flying. While she was running, Isabella was impressed about how Zhang Yi could forge that ramp being far away. When close to her, Zhang Yi asked Isabella if she was okay, but Isabella argues with him because he didn't escape, since Balian wasn't even using all of his power. In that moment Balian gets behind her quickly. She was expecting that, so she takes her sword out to counter-attack. But Balian can feel that she might cut his arm off, so he stops, creating a wind wave which sends our protagonists flying. As Isabella was injured bad, she asked Zhang Yi to escape, but he tells her to leave it all in his hands. Isabella says that he could not do anything since he only has an ordinary brush, but Zhang Yi says that it would be enough. On the other hand, Balian was very angry and starts attacking Zhang Yi at a high speed. Zhang Yi forges several walls to protect himself, making Balian even angrier since he was just using tricks. When Balian reaches him at last, it was just a rock statue, since Zhang Yi was escaping with a rock, making it move with the sand. When Balian saw that, he started attacking them again, but Zhang Yi avoided every attack. Balian was angry and was telling him to fight like a man while destroying every of Zhang Yi's barriers, and Zhang Yi told him that he shouldn't be one of the pillars because he was too slow. Balian was really angry and he was going to kill him, but once Zhang Yi had him facing him, activated the sand trap he forged. As Balian's body were too heavy, he starts to be swallowed by the sand, and Zhang Yi takes advantage of that moment to escape. But in that moment, Zhang Yi starts to sink into the sand because Balian was spinning very fast to suck him in. Zhang Yi wanted to escape, but the sand was moving too fast. Zhang Yi creates a trampoline to escape, and since he had no other choice, he forges the sand, changing its properties, surprising Balian because he didn't expect that. In that part, they doesn't explain to us how did he do that. They only let us know that Iluo sold him a high-class superior forged stone. Once Balian escaped, he attacks Zhang Yi again, but as nothing was working, he creates a new barrier, making Balian to crash with it since he couldn't see it. What he created was a tempered glass that didn't break with the attacks. Zhang Yi starts to make fun of him again. Balian was very angry and start to throw a series of punches with which manages to break the tempered glass. But Zhang Yi had already created several tempered glasses. Zhang Yi makes fun of him once more. Balian could not handle that anymore, so he uses his true power, breaking the glass quickly with a header. Then he steps back to use an ability called Ray Fang, with which he destroys the tempered glasses and reaching Zhang Yi, who is expecting him, and quickly he creates the Prince Rupert's drop, which is a very hard material. Balian ended up injured after crashing with it, and Isabella uses her great velocity to cut his head off. Once he couldn't move anymore, and before he died, he realized that Isabella was the demon queen. Isabella couldn't keep up anymore. She was pretty injured and she was asking to herself why she couldn't use her limit power before. But Zhang Yi decides to look for a safer place to heal her. He found a cave, and once he was taking care of her, he worries because he didn't have anything to heal her wounds. Also, his alignment stone was about to get dry, and in that moment the Thorn Queen told him to remove her suppression seal that was in Isabella's sword that Dorona gave to her. And it was because of that Isabella couldn't use her limit power. After knowing that, Zhang Yi breaks the suppression seal with Isabella's sword. In that moment, Isabella wakes up behind him, making Zhang Yi happy, but out of nothing she grabs him by his neck. Zhang Yi worried asked her if she didn't remember him. Isabella, remembering the kiss with a smile, stops choking him, and from now on he would have to obey to everything she says. Zhang Yi realizes that now Isabella had the Demon Queen personality. He was happy about it since she would be able to recover from her wounds by herself. Zhang Yi decides to obey her, and then he would look for a way to wake up the real Isabella. She demands to him to forge a bathtub. He says that his brush didn't have enough energy, but Isabella tells not to disobey, and with a bit of fear, and very fast, he forges a bath for her. Zhang Yi was about to leave, but she demands him to stay and to warm the water for her while she takes a bath, and he only wanted to watch her while doing it. She congratulates him for his work and she orders him to get up, surprising him. But he didn't disobey and he got up looking away. But in that moment, Isabella put her feet into Zhang Yi's shoulders, making him nervous, so she asked him if there was a problem. Zhang Yi says no, and then she takes her feet off him, calming him down. But then Isabella turned her body and ordered him to give her a massage. Zhang Yi didn't know how to behave. While he was getting close to her, she told him to hurry up and warns him if he looks more that she would take his eyes off. He massages her with fear and looking away while Isabella was enjoying all that. The next day he forges a tricycle, but he was suffering to move it since he had a weak body. Then they hear strong sound in front of them, and it was Prince Marvin, who is still running away from demons. A lot of demons attacks him in that moment, but Marvin forges a hand from where a disc came from and killed all demons following him. He couldn't go on anymore because he used a lot of mental power by forging things, but he decides to go on since he had an important message to deliver to his father. But behind him other demons appeared and started to attack him again. Marvin forges a cannon with which defeats a lot of them, but he was over his limits now. He was starting to lose consciousness. In that moment some black feathers start to fall from the sky. Marvin was scared because he knew what that meant. He receives the attack by not having enough strength to avoid it. The first rank pillar called Darkula was the one responsible of this. From far away, Zhang Yi wanted to help Marvin since he had a lunar stone on his hammer. He asked Isabella a favor to save him, because if they could save him, they could get that lunar stone and find their group of friends. But Isabella didn't want to, because she hadn't recovered all of her power, and also Darkula was the former demon king and her father's disciple. Zhang Yi begs her to go and get that lunar stone. but Isabella says that if he wanted that stone so much that he should go alone. Dracula was getting close to Marvin and he was going to kill him, but Zhang Yi creates a sand screen to save Marvin and also to gather all his things and then escape from that place. But in that moment his brush energy runs out. Zhang Yi gets scared and after a moment, Dracula stands on top of him and starts attacking him with his scythe, destroying half of the wood. But Zhang Yi manages to survive because Isabella managed to parry the attack. And back with Zhang Yi, he asked her to destroy the hammer to use the lunar stone. Isabella notices that Zhang Yi was hurt, so she got mad, starting a fight with Dracula. The others noticed that Zhang Yi was alone and wanted to kill him. But Isabella hears that and furious she lands an attack towards them, defeating them all, and after that she decides to end that fight quick to avoid Zhang Yi to be harmed. Dracula uses his special technique to protect himself from Isabella, and once the attacks collide, it killed most of the demons. Zhang Yi was also in danger, but Isabella manages to save him, and when Dracula sees High Scythe he noticed that it was being damaged because of the fight against Isabella. Dracula already knew that she was the demon queen and he says that she has improved since the last time he saw her using her powers. Isabella tells him that she is surprised to see that he follows Lillian now, and the other demons now that knew that she was the demon queen didn't know who to serve. The demon captain says that Lillian is their queen now and demons only follows the stronger ones, and Isabella now was considered a traitor. Then he says that Lillian would grant them any wish to whoever captured Isabella alive. Once they heard that, they prepare to capture her, and Isabella asks Zhang Yi to hold tight on her since Dracula was about to use a very powerful ability. Once Dracula is using it, everything goes dark, but instead of attacking Isabella he killed all the other demons who wanted to capture her. He left none of them alive. Before Dracula leaves he tells Isabella that he would be waiting for her in the demon tribe, surprising Isabella, wondering if Dracula was her enemy or ally. Then Zhang Yi gets the lunar stone. He was happy, since with that, they would be able to reunite with their group faster. Isabella then covers her horns to keep her identity hidden. Then we found ourselves in a war between the demon army against the dwarves' kingdom. The dwarves were losing that war because all of their weapons were being destroyed, and also the demons had a rank 4 pillar called Chiron's, who takes out of his body an egg which once it explodes it creates a cloud of flies that exploded once they got close to the kingdom. One of the dwarves noticed that and asked to change the castle route, but they answer that they cannot do that since something was keeping the kingdom to change routes, and it was about some slimes that were covering the wheels. The guilty of all that was the 9th rank pillar called Sumux, who was in company of the 6th rank pillar called Suosuo. When these 3 pillars are together, the demon's strength increases, and those demons were already entering the kingdom, killing everyone who stood before him. One of the dwarves goes to inform that demons are now going through their defenses, panicking everyone. But the dwarves' king, Khan, orders them to calm down. His son Roland realized that his father was about to activate something powerful and told him that his body wouldn't resist that. But he wants to do it to save his kingdom. With his scepter he activates the kingdom forge, which allows him to control his moving kingdom. And with that he killed all the demons that were entering. Then he get out some giant arms with which he starts to kill the other demons. When the dwarves noticed that his king was fighting, they started to work harder. Once the pillars realized that Khan was the one controlling the kingdom, they decided to join into the war. Since Khan was getting weak and he didn't have a body capable to do it, he could only use 30% of the kingdom's power. In that moment he starts to worry because he couldn't control his robotic arm, because Suao was controlling it. And with the help of the other pillars they managed to destroy the arm. But the dwarves had created a spare one. Khan uses more power to protect his kingdom even if he dies, so he starts killing the vast majority of demons. Khan's body was getting weaker and the other dwarves wanted to help him, but they couldn't since the lunar stone can only be used by kings or princes. There were 3 lunar stones within the kingdom. One was used to move it. The other one Marvin had it, but he wasn't there, and the other one in Khan's scepter, since Khan couldn't do it alone. They needed another one who could forge with him. Roland was sad not being able to help his father since he had no talent to forge. Khan was starting to bleed, but he didn't want to give up and kept fighting. Sumuk starts attacking the kingdom, leaving Khan really injured. When the demons realized that Khan couldn't keep fighting, they all decided to attack at the same time. But suddenly a healing magic starts to heal all the dwarves, and one demon informs that reinforcements had arrived. And behind them some missiles start to fall, killing a lot of demons. The dwarves were wondering if Marvin had arrived, but it wasn't him. It was Zhang Yi's team led by Martin. Khan recognizes Martin and gives the order to not attack them by accident. Martin gets into the kingdom to help Khan while the others are fighting demons, where Suao starts to attack first. But Penny destroys Suosuo's threads very easy, and she starts to make fun of the pillars. The pillars were very surprised since they didn't expect the human kingdom to help the dwarves. They wanted to kill them. but they were wondering if that would affect the relationship between the human tribe and the demon tribe. Suisuo says that they better kill them because they intervened in the war. But in that moment a person gets above them and throws Papate's head in front of the pillars. This person was Sophocles, which says that if any of them would dare to put a finger on his friends, they would pay. Chirons was happy about his brother's death since now he could rank up. The other demons were feeling confident and they were about to fight that group of people since they now had an army and the pillars were also with them. Sophocles uses an ability and Alina with her magic increases the size of that ability, making it defeat a lot of demons. Chirons manages to protect himself just by a hair, but his shield was about to break. That scared the other pillars because now they had to fight carefully against Sophocles. Chirons gets mad and uses his maximum power to kill Sophocles. But in that moment the corpse pillar ordered them to retire. Chirons wanted to fight against the humans but the corpse pillar says not to disobey orders and with no other option all the demons start to flee. Alina was happy about it since she could only use her magnification power once a day. With the help of Martin, they were repairing the kingdom. Khan was very tired and thanks Martin for his help. But he says that he haven't done anything yet because when using kingdom forges he gets tired very quick. Then Martin congratulates him because he was fighting like that for months. But Khan says that he was fighting with Marvin, because he was the one who could take advantage of the kingdom's full power. When Martin remembers Marvin he asked where he was, but Roland says that he was killed by the demon tribe. He explains that they didn't fear the demon tribe before, but Khan couldn't stand seeing his people die so he accepted a peace treaty with the demon tribe. But when they were talking about putting an end to the war, the demons attacked Marvin in the middle of the conversation and nobody from his group had arrived yet. When Martin hears it he says that he will help the dwarves and Sophocles asks Khan if any other human arrived to the kingdom before they did. Khan says no, since they were the only ones from the human tribe. After that he starts bleeding, worrying everyone, and Fiona wanted to examine him to see if she could help him. Roland told her not to touch his father but Martin convinced him. They would treat his father the next day. That night when Roland was alone he went to speak to the corpse pillar and we find out that it was him who sent Marvin out of the kingdom. He also drained Khan's power to destroy the kingdom and the pillar told him to be patient since very soon he would be the dwarves' king. Roland was very angry since he always said that so he asked for an exact date. And this pillar said that in a few days he would send troops to finish off the kingdom for real. That said, they leave, now in the demon's queen castle. The corpse pillar Raymond was thinking about absorbing many corpses when the war starts again. That would make him really strong, so much that even Darkula would be on his side. Even though Lillian would be pissed for what he was going to do, he wasn't stopping. The next day when Fiona finished diagnosing Khan, she says that it was very weird since his body wasn't injured. Roland asked if that could be because he forged too much, but it wasn't that, since Martin also forged a lot but he wasn't as bad as Khan. When Fiona gathers everything she knows, she mentions that Khan might be poisoned, surprising Roland because the venom he used was almost impossible to detect. Fiona says that even medicine won't work since that venom was unknown and the only way to save him was to find Xiang Yi. In that moment some dwarves say that Roland was the best pharmacologist in the kingdom. But as he didn't want to save him he says that his knowledge isn't enough. The others say that he should try at least, but pretending to be sad he kneels before Khan and the others left him alone. So Roland could clear his mind and be happy because everything was going according to his plan. On the other hand, Xiang Yi and Isabella arrives to the place the dwarves had fought against the demons. Xiang Yi was surprised because there were no bodies despite the blood, and Isabella says that Raymond, the corpse pillar, might have absorbed those bodies. He could also use them as puppets, an ability useful in long battles. Xiang Yi asks if she could beat him even if he absorbs a lot of corpses, and Isabella says that the last demon gave her that ability. And since she has a demon queen limit power, she could crush him. Xiang Yi asks if he had a weak point, but Isabella didn't have that information. Once they were going back to the ship, Isabella wonders why did she talk that much. Then Marvin wakes up and asks them if they were the ones who saved them and Xiang Yi said yes but they decided to talk inside the ship. On the other hand in the dwarves' kingdom, some dwarves were worried about Khan. Sophocles decides to go and look for Xiang Yi since that's what's most important for him. In that moment one dwarf arrives and informs that the demons were gathering to attack again, and this time a ship unidentified was approaching towards the kingdom and everybody was getting ready for the fight. Some of them wanted to name Roland their new king so they could have a leader who could guide them. Roland says that he doesn't have his brother's or father's ability to forge but Martin handed over the scepter to him and told him that he was going to help. When Roland was sitting down in the throne he remembers when he was a child and everyone praised him for being smart creating medicines. But he wondered why he didn't have talent to forge like his brother and he thought that when he grew up he would only be useful to serve others. He didn't want to be a pharmacologist anymore. Then we can see that the dwarves that were with Marvin, actually, they had arrived to the kingdom. But Roland had killed them and made their bodies disappear with acid. He had always pretended to be a good person, but now at last he could become king. and as his first order he ordered all the dwarves to surrender before the demons. Everyone is surprised about that and asks him why is he giving that order, and Roland says that the demons will leave them alone as long as they give 100 lives monthly. Now everybody sees Roland's true face. Roland knew that they weren't sent by the human tribe and he ordered to capture them. Everyone was wondering what should they do. But in that moment, in destroying part of the castle, Xiang Yi arrives with Isabella and Marvin. When Sophisis sees Xiang Yi, he quickly asked if he was okay. Isabella was a bit jealous for that. Roland, on the other hand, when he sees his brother, he says that he would tell everything to him once he fully recovered. When Bart sees Roland, he punches him hard, sending him flying, since he already knew that he had been plotting with the demons to destroy their own kingdom, to avoid being discovered. Roland told him that he was wrong, but Bart says that he already confirmed that since the demons themselves told him. Roland wanted to save himself and says that the demons brainwashed him, making all the ministers doubt about Bart's words. Then he says that the humans were working with the demons to destroy their kingdom. Most of the ministers agreed with Roland, but Bart was trying to tell them that they were wrong, and Sophisis couldn't hold that situation and was about to start a fight with those dwarves, but Xiang Yi asked him to leave it in his hands. And when getting close to Roland, he gives a lot of motives why they were helping them. Xiang Yi asked him to take him to Khan to answer all of their questions, and he says that just for having Khan's scepter, that doesn't make him the king, since his brother Bart had arrived to the kingdom. That caused the ministers to wonder which prince they should support. To make him shut, Roland accepts to taking him to his father and warns him that if he can't save him, all the human beings inside the kingdom should return to their kingdom, and that how this third part of the manual ends. If you want a fourth part, comment below with the word wife. Also, don't forget to subscribe, like the video and ring the bell. Please comment below the next manual you want me to resume for you in the next video.